Now we'll do a story. Madam Rides the Bus. The story is written by Wali Kannan, an author from southern India. The story has Tamil origin. In this sensitive story, there is a girl who's 8 years old and who goes for her first bus ride outside her village to discover the world outside. And gets introduced to several new experiences relating to life and death. Now we'll see the story. There was a girl named Vali for short. She was 8 years old and very curious about things, interested in everything around her. Her favorite pastime, the thing she enjoyed the most, was standing in the front doorway of her house, watching what was happening in the street outside, watching people pass by, buses, trees, everything. There were no playmates of her own age on her street. And this was about all she had to do. But for Vali, standing at the front door was every bit as enjoyable as any other games other children play. Watching the street gave her many new, unusual experiences. The most fascinating thing of all was the bus that traveled between her village and the nearest town. It passed through her street every hour, once going to the town and once coming back. The sight of the bus filled each time with a new set of passengers was a source of unending joy for Wali. Day after day, she watched the bus, and gradually, a tiny wish crept into her head and grew there. She wanted to ride on that bus, even just once. This wish became stronger and stronger until it was an overwhelming desire. Wali would stare at the people who got on and off the bus when it stopped at the street corner. She would think about it in her dreams and hopes and her longings. If one of her friends happened to ride the bus and try to describe the sights, she would feel too jealous to listen and would shout in English, "Proud, proud." Neither she nor her friends really understood the meaning of the word, but they used it often as a slang expression of disapproval. Over many days and months, Vali listened carefully to the conversations between her neighbors and people who regularly used the bus. She also asked a few discreet questions here and there. This way she picked up various small details about the bus. The town was 6 miles away from her village. The fare was 30 paise one way. Which according to one man was almost nothing at all. But to Wali, who scarcely saw that much money, this seemed like a fortune. The trip to the town took 45 minutes. On reaching the town, if she stayed in her seat and paid another 30 paise, she could return home on the same bus in 60 paise. This meant that she could take the 1 o'clock afternoon bus, reach the town at 1:45, and be back home by about 2:45. On and on went her thoughts as she planned and calculated and recalculated, planned and replanned. Well, one fine spring day, the afternoon bus was just on the point of leaving the village, and Wali decided to take that bus. "Stop the bus! Stop the bus!" And a tiny hand was raised commandingly. The bus slowed down, and the conductor said, "Hurry then, tell whoever it is to come quickly." "It's me," shouted Wali. "I'm the one who has to get on." By now the bus had come to a stop, and the conductor said, "Oh, really? You don't say so." "Yes, I simply have to go to the town," said Wali, still standing outside the bus. "And here is my money." She showed him some coins. Okay, but first you must get on the bus," said the conductor. And he stretched out a hand to help her up. "Never mind," she said. "I can get on by myself. You don't have to help me." The conductor was a jolly sort of a fellow. "Oh, please, don't be angry with me, my fine madam," he said. "Here, have a seat right up there in the front. Everybody, move aside, please. Make way for madam." There were only 6-7 people on the bus. They were all looking at Wali and laughing with the conductor. Wali was overcome with shyness. Avoiding everyone's eyes, she walked quickly to an empty seat and sat down. "May we start now, madam?" the conductor asked, smiling. Then he blew his whistle twice, and the bus moved. It was a new bus. Its outside painted a gleaming white with some green stripes along the sides. Inside, the overhead bars shone like silver. Directly in front of Wali, above the windshield, there was a beautiful clock. The seats were soft and luxurious. Wali devoured everything with her eyes. But when she started to look outside, she found her view cut off by a canvas blind that covered the lower part of a window. So she stood up on the seat and peered over the blind. The bus was now going the bank of canal. The road was very narrow. On one side, there was the canal, and beyond it, palm trees, grassland, distant mountains, the blue sky. On the other side was acres and acres of green fields, green, as far as the eyes could see. Oh, it was all so beautiful. Suddenly, she was startled by a voice. "Listen, child," said the voice. "You shouldn't stand like that. Sit down." Sitting down, she looked to see who had spoken. It was an elderly man who had honestly been concerned for her, but she was annoyed by his attention. "There's nobody here who is a child," she said haughtily. "I've paid my 30 paise like everyone else." The conductor chimed in. "Oh, sir, but this is a very grown-up madam. Do you think a mere girl could pay her own fare and travel to the city all alone?" Vali shot an angry glance at the conductor and said, "I am not a madam. Please remember that. And you have not yet given me my ticket." "Oh, I will remember," said the conductor, mimicking her tone. Everybody laughed. And gradually, Vali too joined in the laughter. The conductor punched a ticket and handed it to her. "Just sit back and make yourself comfortable. Why should you stand when you've paid for a seat?" "Because I want to," she answered, standing up again. "But if you stand on the seat, you may fall and hurt yourself when the bus takes a sharp turn or hits a bump. That's why we want you to sit down, child." "I'm not a child, I tell you," she said irritably. "I am 8 years old." "Of course! How stupid of me! 8 years, my!" The bus stopped again. Some new passengers got on, and the conductor got busy for a time. Afraid of losing her seat, Vali finally sat down. An elderly woman came and sat beside her. "Are you all alone, dear?" she asked Vali as the bus started again. Vali found the woman absolutely repulsive. Such big holes she had in her earlobes, and such ugly earrings in them. She could smell the betel nut the woman was chewing, and see the betel juice which was threatening to spill over her lips at any moment. Oh, who could be sociable with such a person? "Yes, I am traveling alone," she answered curtly. "And I have a ticket too." "Yes, she is on her way to town," said the conductor, "with a 30 paise ticket." Oh, why don't you mind your own business? Said Vali. But she laughed all the same, and the conductor laughed too. But the old woman went on with her drivel. Is it proper for such a young person to travel alone? Do you know where exactly you're going in town? What's the street? What's the house number? Vali turned to reply. This was none of the old woman's business where she was going and why she was traveling alone. So Vali said, You needn't bother about me. I can take care of myself. Turning her face towards the window and staring out. This was her first journey. And what careful, painstaking, elaborate plans she had to make for it. She had thriftily saved whatever coins came her way. 5 paisa, 10 paisa. She had resisted every temptation to buy peppermints, toys, balloons, everything. And finally, she had saved a total of 60 paise. How difficult it had been, particularly the day at the village fair, when she had to let go of her strong desire to ride the merry-go-round, even though she had the money. It had all been hard. After she had enough money saved, her next problem was how to slip out of the house without her mother's knowledge. But she managed this without much difficulty. Every day after lunch, her mother would nap from about 1 to 4 or so. Vali used these hours for her excursions as she stood looking from the doorway of her house, or sometimes even ventured out into the village. Today, these same hours could be used for her first excursion outside the village. As the bus kept on going, trees came running toward them, but it felt like they stopped as the bus reached them and simply stood there and then rushed away in the other direction. Suddenly, Vali clapped her hands with glee. A young cow, tail high in the air, was running very fast right in the middle of the road, right in front of the bus. The bus slowed down, and the driver sounded his horn loudly again and again. But the more he honked, more frightened the animal became and faster it ran. Somehow, all this was very funny to Vali. The bus conductor said, "Hey lady, haven't you laughed enough? Better save some for tomorrow." Then the bus stopped, and everyone got off. "Hey lady, aren't you ready to get off?" said the conductor. "This is as far as your 30 paisa takes you." "No," Vali said. "I'm going back on this bus." She took another 30 paisa from her pocket and handed the coins to the conductor. "Why? Is something the matter?" the conductor asked. No, nothing's the matter. I just felt like having a bus ride. That's all. Don't you want to have a look at the sights now that you're here? All by myself? Oh, I'd be much too afraid. Greatly amused by the girl's way of speaking, the conductor said, "But you weren't afraid to come in the bus." "Nothing to be afraid of about that," she answered. "Well, then why not go to that stall over there and have something to drink?" "Nothing to be afraid of about that either." "Oh no, I couldn't do that." "Well, then let me bring you a cold drink." "No, no, no, I don't have enough money. Just give me my ticket, that's all." "It'll be my treat and not cost you anything." "No, no, no," she said firmly. "Please, no." The conductor shrugged. They waited until it was time for the bus to begin the return journey. Again, there weren't many passengers. "Won't your mother be looking for you?" the conductor asked. "No, no one will be looking for me," she said. The bus started, and again there were the same wonderful sights. Vali wasn't bored in the slightest and greeted everything with the same excitement that she had felt the first time. But suddenly she saw a young cow lying dead by the roadside, just where it had been struck by a fast moving vehicle. "Isn't that the same cow that ran in front of the bus on our trip to town?" she asked the conductor. The conductor nodded, and she was overcome with sadness. What had been a lovable, beautiful creature just a while ago was now dead, all gone. Looked so horrible, so frightening as it lay there, legs spread eagle, a fixed stare in the lifeless eyes, blood all over. The bus moved on. The memory of the dead cow haunted her, dampening her enthusiasm. She no longer wanted to look out the window. She sat, glued to her seat, until the bus reached her village at 3:40. She stood up and stretched herself. Then she turned to the conductor and said, "Well, sir, I hope to see you again." "Okay, madam," he answered her, smiling. "Whenever you feel like a bus ride, come and join us. And don't forget to bring your fare." She laughed and jumped down from the bus. Then away she went, reached home. When she entered her house, she found her mother awake and talking to one of her aunts, one from the neighborhood. This aunt was real chatterbox, never closing her mouth once she started talking. Her aunt asked, "And where have you been?" She spoke very casually as Vali came in. So Vali just smiled thinking the reply was not expected, and her mother and aunt went on with their conversation. Yes, you're right, her mother said. So many things in our midst and in the world outside. How can we possibly know everything? And even when we do know about something, we often can't understand it completely, can we? Wali said, Oh, I was just agreeing with what you said about things happening without knowledge. Both the mother and the aunt became surprised. Just a chit of a girl she is. And yet, look how she pokes her nose into our conversation, just as though she is a grown up lady. Wally smiled to herself. She didn't want them to understand her smile. But then, there wasn't much chance of that, was there? Wally has finished experiencing something new that she couldn't explain.